My name is Keith Patterson, linebacker coach here at the University of Tulsa. Today we're going to talk about linebacker skill development. What are some of the characteristics that I look for when trying to identify linebackers? We're going to look at linebacker essentials. What are some of the musts that linebackers have to be able to execute? Evaluation. What do we use to evaluate our linebackers? The productivity. Finally, what are drills that I use to implement to be able to teach those skills? Tulsa defensive philosophy. Number one is stop the run. We feel like at linebacker we have to maintain gap integrity. We want to be gap sound. We want to force the ball to be ran on the perimeter of our defense. Number two, control the pass. We don't want to give up any cheap touchdowns. We want to be vertically sound, make the ball be thrown in front of us. And then finally is relentless pursuit. We want to gang tackle. We want to get young men around the football and force good things to happen. Our cardinal rule as a linebacking core is the ball will not run through the heart of our defense. Linebacker characteristics. What are things I look for when trying to identify linebackers? Number one, physically tough. Want young men who are seekers of contact. Number two, instinctiveness. Young men who have a nose for the football. And third and finally is athletic ability. The ability to bend and make plays. Here's an example of number 27, our Sam linebacker, being physical, playing off of a block, pursuing the football inside out, being physical on the tackle. Instinctiveness. If you'll watch our Mike linebacker here in the middle of the field, number 41, getting the split zone, starts one direction, has the instinctiveness to redirect and make a great play. Athleticism. The third characteristic that we look for in linebackers, that is the ability to make plays by bending your body and avoiding blocks. Both linebackers blitzing off the edge here, number 27 and number 41, causing a guy to miss a block right there. Number 41 bending his body and allowing himself to make a great play, and again being physical on the quarterback. Three things that I consider to be linebacker essentials are knowledge, fundamentals, and effort. Number one is knowledge. Pre-snap responsibilities. What are things that linebackers need to know prior to the snap to allow them to play fast? Number two is fundamentals. Sight, movement, contact. Where's my eye control? How do I eliminate wasted movement? Contact. Getting off blocks and making tackles. Number three is effort. Productivity. We want young men who want to make plays. Tackles for losses, sacks, tip passes, intercepted passes, and forced fumbles. Knowledge. Things linebackers need to know prior to the snap of the football. Number one is communication. Underneath our communication progression, down and distance is the first thing we need to communicate. Every team will have down and distance tendencies. Therefore, again, understanding the situation allows me to play fast. Personnel groupings are important. How many backs? How many tight ends? This allows us to understand formations, formation tendencies, and what to expect from the offense. The defensive call. It's important for every member of the defensive unit to get the defensive call to eliminate busted assignments. Communicate the tight call. Most big plays from the offense comes oftentimes from misalignments by the defense. Identifying the backfill set will help linebackers to determine the attack points of the offense. Stance. We'd like to have your feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart. We want a slight bend in the knees with your hips up. When you have your hips up in your stance, this allows your pad level to be pointing toward the offensive lineman. We want a slight cock in the elbow with a slight cock in your wrist, with your hands relaxed and your eyes focused on your key. Alignment. Oftentimes big plays by the offense are a result of misalignment by the defense. Our vertical alignment is 4 to 4.5 yards off the football with our heels. The vertical alignment is the distance off the football, and it's predicated by run or pass situations. We have three horizontal alignments: gap versus 2x1 formations, base versus 2x2 formations, and pull versus 3x1 formations. An example of a 2x1 formation would be pro or twins. Our linebackers are going to gap slightly by putting their nose in their gap responsibility toward the two receiver side. In a base alignment versus a 2x2 formation, the linebackers are stacked directly over the tackles. The Mike linebacker might have to offset his alignment slightly to be able to see his primary key. We pull 3x1 formations. In this particular example, I would prefer the Mike linebacker number 55 to be directly over the top of the guard to the strong side. The Will linebacker number 52, his alignment would be directly over the guard to the weak side. The second essential are fundamentals. What are things that allow me to play fast as a linebacker? Number one, keys. Where's my eye control? We have a primary key and a secondary key. Our primary key is the running back. We specifically look at the running back for two reasons. Number one, quick direction of the play. Secondly, is to determine flow. Our secondary key is the uncovered offensive lineman in the 3-3-5 defense, which is the guard. We look at our guard for two reasons. We want to determine the departure angle and also to diagnose the play. We look at him for two reasons, to determine whether it's run or pass or some type of misdirection play. The reason that we look at a primary and secondary key is to recognize plays. We break it down into types of flow, and it's what we call play recognition. We have inside flow, angle flow, outside flow, and split flow. Inside flow plays are what make linebackers react fast downhill into their gap responsibility. Here's an example of an inside vertical flow play. Inside vertical flow plays make our linebackers react fast. In this particular example, the fullback is going to lead on the Will linebacker to the right. He is giving him an inside vertical flow. His secondary key, which is the guard to the weak side, is blocking down on the nose guard. That makes him react fast downhill into his gap responsibility. The Mike linebacker, again, is getting inside vertical flow to his left. He sees the down block by the guard. Therefore, he will come downhill into his gap responsibility, and again, instinctiveness, making a play on the football. The Sam linebacker to the left, he is getting inside vertical flow away from him. His secondary key, which is the strong side guard, is climbing on him to base block. His responsibility is to engage and use his athletic ability to make a nice play on the tailback. Angle flow plays. In this particular example, we have a one-back formation. So therefore, our primary key is the one back. Again, we're looking at that primary key to get quick direction and flow of the play. This is an example of an angle flow play that's going to hit off tackle. The Sam linebacker is getting angle flow by the one back. He is getting a down block onto the nose guard with his secondary key. The angle flow causes him and allows him to fit outside or just off the defensive end and fits inside the pulling guard. The Mike linebacker, again, is getting angle flow and a down block. His responsibility on the off-tackle power play is to make the ball bounce. He is going to get downhill into his gap responsibility and make the ball redirect toward the outside part of the field. Again, the Will linebacker is getting angle flow by his primary key. He is getting a pull by the backside guard. He will make a pull call to the Mike and the Sam linebacker. He will work over the top of the trash. In this particular instance, you see the Will linebacker using his athletic ability to try to get to the play side. Again, here we have a two-back formation. Our primary key is going to be the near back. In this particular example, he gives us outside flow, shows us the front tip of his shoulder pad. Our inside linebackers need to make sure that we maintain inside-out leverage on the ball carrier, trying to keep from getting head up or over the top. Most great running backs like to cut your inside shoulder. Here, the play side linebacker does a great job of tempoing and leveraging the football. The Mike linebacker does a great job of staying out of the trash. The play side guard gets a nice, quick read from his secondary key with a pull. He knows right now that the ball is going to be moving to the outside. With our weak side linebacker, number 27, we were bringing him on a blitz. Therefore, he's going to recognize flow and try to bend and run and chase from behind. Does a great job pursuing the football. Again, great play by the play side linebacker, leveraging and tempoing the football. Here's an example of a split flow or misdirection play. It's a counter out of a one-back set. All three linebackers out of the one-back set, their primary key is going to be the tailback. He is starting to his left. The weak side linebacker at the top of the screen, number 32, his secondary key is pulling. Again, it's the uncovered offensive lineman, which is the guard. He is getting a pull. Helps him to diagnose the play. He knows the ball is going to be ran to his left. He makes a pull call to the Mike linebacker. The Mike linebacker will redirect, get downhill into his gap responsibility, try to force the ball to either bend or bounce to the outside of the field. The play side linebacker, number 27, in this instance, he is getting a down block with misdirection. As soon as he hears a pull call, he will fit downhill outside of the defensive end, expecting a block from the puller, in this instance being the tight end. Another key component of fundamental football is being able to get off blocks. We call this block protection. We have two different techniques that we use to be able to get off blocks. Number one is what we call and refer to as a cage technique. The key components of being able to get off a block are to be able to have live feet, explosive hips, quick hands, take your eyes and your hat placement to the blocker. The second technique that we teach to be able to get off blocks is what we refer to as a cut technique. To be able to get off of a cut block, you have to have a power base. You want to keep your outside arm and leg free. You want to be able to take your eyes to the headgear of the blocker. You want to let him run down into a locked out elbow, steering his head toward the sideline. Once you get off the block, reduce the grasp between you and the ball carrier, being ready to make a play. We have two pass concepts that we teach our linebackers. Number one is what we refer to as a zone concept. In the zone concept, our eyes are on the quarterback. We are spot droppers, and we normally play zone to be able to eliminate the vertical pass as well as stop the run. Here's an example of a zone concept. You'll notice all three linebackers, their eyes are on the quarterback as they take their drop. The quarterback sets up, they set up, they're not chasing routes. They're trying to carry the seam route by the tight end. The Mike linebacker is sinking to his landmark or his spot. The Will linebacker at the bottom of the screen is taking a junk drop right at the hash. We're not chasing routes. Our eyes are on the quarterback, reading the quarterback's intentions and driving on the football. The second concept is a man concept. The difference between zone and man, we play man normally in blitz situations. The difference being our eyes go to the man that we're responsible for covering instead of on the quarterback. Here's an example of a man concept. In this particular example, the play side linebacker will be responsible for the back out of the backfield. We would like for his eye control to be on the man. In our zone concept, our eyes are on the quarterback. The key component here is to train your eyes to take them to your man responsibility. The Mike linebacker is accountable for all crossing routes. Here he's getting a crossing route by the inside slot receiver. As you see, he takes his eye control to the man. Again, one of the key components is physical toughness. We're not cover guys, so therefore we try to be very physical on all releases by wide receivers. Another key component of fundamentals are blitz techniques. We teach an A-gap dog, a B-gap dog, a C-scrape, and a D-crash. When executing an A-gap dog, one of the most important essentials of a blitz is timing. We want to make sure that we're on the heel line of the defensive line when the ball snapped. When running an A-gap dog, do not be underneath the down block. If we get a hard down block by the guard, we're going to come off of his hip. A B-gap dog, again, one of the most important essential elements is timing and getting off. We want to be on the heel line of the defensive lineman when the ball snapped, reducing our pad level and our surface as we move through the gap. A C-scrape, C-scrape is executed where we're going to come straight downhill off of our 5 technique, bending and taking our eye control into the backfield and reacting and bending toward the ball. Finally is a D-crash. When executing a D-crash, we're going to be 2 yards outside the ball when the ball is snapped on the heel line of the defensive lineman. We're going to attack the hip of the end man on the line of scrimmage, bending toward the ball carrier. Here is an example of the Mike linebacker making a great play on an A-gap dog. He does a good job of not tipping his hand to the offensive lineman, getting too far up into the line of scrimmage where they can recognize him coming on a stunt. Does a good job bending toward the ball carrier. At the top of the screen, you'll see the Sam linebacker executing a D-crash, again using his athleticism to avoid the block by the tailback, and does a great job pursuing the football. Again, relentless effort and relentless pursuit. At the bottom of the screen here, number 32, our Will linebacker is going to execute a D-crash again. Does an excellent job of getting his feet in the grass, reestablishing the base, and making a great play. Here we are sending the Will linebacker on an A-gap dog. He does a good job of keeping his pad square, fitting up into his gap once he recognizes run. The Mike linebacker does an excellent job of working over the top and making an excellent play on the ball carrier. Here's an excellent example of our Willie linebacker at the top of the screen, timing up the stunt, being on the heel line of the defensive lineman. This is important because it does not allow the offensive lineman to recognize the linebacker blitzing. Therefore, it allows him to make a great play on the ball carrier. The third and final essential of linebacker play is effort. One of the things that we try to hang our hat on here at the University of Tulsa is pursuit. We want to relentlessly pursue the football. We ask our young men to give us a 5-second blowout. We want to swarm and gang tackle the ball carrier, and we want to play through the end of the whistle. We measure relentless pursuit at the University of Tulsa through productivity. One of those ways is through TFLs, or tackles for losses. We try to create negative yardage plays for the offense to put them into long yardage situations. We feel like if we can do this, that we give our defense a definite advantage on being able to get off the field. Another way that we measure productivity at the University of Tulsa is through turnovers. We go into every game trying to force at least 3 turnovers throughout the course of the game, whether they be fumble recoveries or interceptions. In the past 2 seasons, every game that we have forced at least 3 turnovers, we've won. The games in which we have not forced at least 3 turnovers, we have gone on to lose the football game. Finally is 3 and outs. We want to be able to get on and off the field. Every time we take the field, we want to be able to go 3 plays and out. The third and final aspect of effort is tackling. We believe that relentlessly pursuing the football, we have to be a great tackling football team in order to be successful. I think it's vital for linebackers to be able to control their feet, eliminate wasted movement, and that allows me to play fast. I do this through a variety of footwork drills, just getting young men to understand how to play with a power base, how to control their feet, eliminate false steps, and keep their weight on the inside balls of their feet. Linebackers also have to have the ability to be able to change directions, being able to stick your foot in the grass. The way you do that, again, it's by keeping your pad level down, keeping the weight on the inside balls of your feet, being able to maintain that power base, stick your foot in the grass, and change directions. Two elements that are important to a linebacker is the ability to control your feet and to train your eyes. We do that through what we call our key progression. Number one is our flow drill. Here we're trying to control our feet, emulate the path of the back. Again, being able to train our eyes to focus on a primary key. To train linebackers' eyes, I use a primary and a secondary key drill where we have two guards and one back or a two-back set. We focus on direction and flow from the primary key, trying to get our secondary key, angle of departure, as well as trying to diagnose the play. The final component of the key progression is play recognition, being able to recognize plays. It's not only important that young men know what to look at, they need to know who's going to block them, so it will help them to play fast and be able to understand what type of block protection that they're going to use to be able to play off of a block. The first element that I use in teaching a cage technique is a 6-point smile drill. All we're trying to get taught here is taking our hands, shooting our hands with our elbows inside, our thumbs up to the inside breastplate of the offensive lineman, and leading with our eyes, and we call it a cage technique because we take the cage of our face mask and put it into the V of the neck of the offensive lineman. As you'll notice here, we're in a 6-point stance. The key is get their toes up underneath them. They're on their knees, their hands are flat on the ground. On the whistle, they'll bow their neck. Second whistle, they'll shoot their hat and hands into the two-man low sled. Here's a linebacker executing a 2-point smile drill on a pop-up sled. Again, you'll notice him coming downhill from his linebacker stance. Want to make sure that we make contact. Once we cage, now we put in the what? Feet, the hips, the hat, and the hands. We want to make sure that we make contact with both feet on the ground. Power base. Weight on the inside balls of our feet. I should see the hips uncoil. Want to uncoil the hips. Create separation with the hat and the hands. Elbows inside, thumbs up. Hat placement needs to be low. Pad level and hat placement needs to be down. Now escape the block with your feet, hips, and hat and hands. Okay, here's another example of of a cage technique. Place an offensive lineman. I give him a slight stagger, give him just a little bit of an edge where he has the leverage on the linebacker. Again, nice stance. Linebacker has weight on the inside balls of his feet, slight bend in his hips. Hips are slightly flexed and up. When it's pad level pointing toward that offensive lineman, the lineman's going to zone off on him. Again, watch the separation that he creates with his hat and his hands. Shoots his elbows inside. His thumbs are up. Creates separation. Now he's going to readjust the pad level of that offensive lineman once he begins to press back into him. Readjust his pad level and pull off the block with your live feet. Run through and make a tackle. Needs to reestablish a power base as he has to make a play. I'd like to have his pad level a little bit more toward that offensive lineman, but he does a great job here of creating separation. Creates separation. Pulls off the block. Needs to reestablish a power base on the tackle. In our cut technique progression, we always, again, want to start from point blank range. We want our linebackers to focus on playing off the cut block. Okay? Things that you ought to see is you ought to see the linebacker, again, maintain a power base. As he comes downhill, he wants to keep his outside arm and leg free. He should take his inside arm, try to take it to the headgear of the cut block. He will take his offhand or his outside hand and use that to steer or guide the cut blocker's head toward the sideline. To be a great linebacker, you have to possess the ability to be a great tackler. In teaching young men to tackle, we go from a progression. I'd like to start from point blank range using a sled. We teach the elements of a form tackle. Things you ought to see is you ought to see, again, you want to see a power base. He ought to have the weight on the inside balls of his feet. He ought to have bend in his knees. He ought to have a flex in his hips. We want to see him club and grab cloth. And he ought to over-exaggerate since he's tackling a sled. We want to see it over-exaggerate on the club. We want to lead with our eyes. We want to have our pad level down. And we ought to see him punch his hips or uncoil his hips on contact. Again, we want to maintain a power base. He does a great job right before contact, accelerating his feet, punch his hips into the bag. Now he ought to accelerate his feet, and we just try to roll the sled. Here's an example of an angle tackle. Linebacker's going to get downhill, reestablish his power base, leads with his eyes, shrugs his shoulders, maintains that power base, accelerates his feet, and runs right through the ball carrier. Again, pretty good job on the club. We want to club and grab high cloth. We ought to see those fingers disappear, accelerate his feet on contact or prior to contact. I'd like to thank you for watching today and hope that you can take at least one thing from this video and you can use and apply with your linebackers.